Just shut up and look at me. Not at the music.
Everything you say and do sparkles so brightly.
What did you have in your heart up there? What was your inspiration?
Your Lie in April is a tightly packed story interwoven with many themes. The downfall of success, moving on from loss, finding purpose, but first and foremost to me in all of this is the most simple in name with the most incomprehensible meaning: love. One of the most purely abstract concepts within human existence, it's a source of the greatest pain and of the most memorable joy. Both sides of this dichotomy are explored in the anime through Kosei and his relationships with his mother and Kaori. It shows how negative love can be and its consequences and dangers, as well as how positive it should be, with one key word that distinguishes between the two sides: creativity. But before we get into just how it does that, keep in mind we're discussing love in a general sense here, not in a romantic one. So words that may be typically coded in amorous arrangements like relationship or even love itself won't be carrying that incidental meaning here today. Now let's get into a sort of philosophy of love, or at least what I have interpreted as such from the anime. To start, we'll look at the side of things that failed, which will provide one half of the evidence for our later claims. Of course, this side of failure is Kosei and his mother. As the anime progresses, we get a deeper look at how their relationship began to crumble. Once harboring a healthy bond between mother and son, this deteriorated as his mother also did. Slowly dying to an unnamed ailment, she became much more violent with her son, forcing him to practice the piano, the same instrument she played, for long hours and harsh nights. So much so, as he grew older, he was hardly able to play with his friends, and they'd often see him covered in bruises when they did. If he deviated from the notes on the page, he'd be hit, and this instilled in him a technically perfect playing, lauded by the judges as perfection, but seen by his competitors as robotic, an insult to his once soulful performance. When his mother was still healthy and their life was still happy, Kosei's first performance was one of these inspirational pieces. But as they both grew older, deviance from those notes that drew the admiration of others was beaten out of him. However, while this violent display was focused around what good playing was, physical assault wasn't what drove Kosei to become as proficient as he did. All this did was serve to drive them further apart. His motivation was set already when his mother told him early on that,
"I take a lot of pills, but you spreading your wings like this, that's the best medicine for me."
With this, she had all but sealed his future issues. What we've seen so far is a relationship driven by success, defined by the piano and his accomplishments on it. Until he's able to move on, all we see of them together is around this instrument. And this additional motivation of his mother's health was nothing new in how their relationship worked, at least at the end. Success in a traditional sense refers to the positive outcomes of an action, and especially when used in situations like this with literal judges, this binds it to the past. Everything is compared to what's occurred in the past, and from there, it becomes successful or not, and this is because perfection can only exist once, but failure is infinite, so every rating is a look to past perfection. In this way, Kosei wanting to make his mother healthy again by playing well is the same thing. When he thinks back on her, it's not with hatred, but with a soft contemplation. He still prays at her shrine without an ounce of hatred showing. He thinks of the moments before she grew cold and harsh. His aim in playing well was a look to the past, seeing their once successful relationship and wishing to return to it. She was forcing him to be in a position of worldly success, and he was searching for familial success in that. And the goal here, it was tied to something that could never be. It's obvious his playing wouldn't bring his mother's health back, it was just the misguided wish of a child, one she encouraged. But even outside of that, focusing on success and tying it to someone else is always doomed to fail. No existence in this world is eternal, and all paths end in the same place. They could never return to the past, and his view forward was blocked by a mirror. This motivation is a dangerous thing, even with good intentions. While Kosei's mother did become an evil woman, her heart wasn't in an awful place. Knowing her time left was limited and that she could never help her son to be prosperous, she condensed years and years of that time into what they had left, because if she could leave him as a grand pianist, then he would be stable. If nothing else, there would be a path forward for him to live a comfortable life. and for this world, it makes sense to stamp out creativity like this. The easiest example is the judges, characters with no more interaction or development than to look at the notes on a sheet, listen to the notes played, compare the two and dish out a quantitative value to the sound of the soul. And they don't care the least bit about soul, they care about what best represents the successes of long dead men. Kosei's mother was playing the world's game on a limited timeline. It doesn't justify anything she did, but it makes her violence down to earth in a chillingly accurate way. They lived for each other, each one seeking to better the future of the other. But without creativity, consisting of simply violent repetition, their relationship failed. The last thing we see Kosei say to his mother is this, after he gave a performance that deviated from the sheet music, and she began to hit him.
"'Cause I don't care anymore. Now I just wish you were dead."
For how reasonable a stamping of creativity may have been for the world, it's the worst thing for love. I'm going to use myself as an example here for a moment, but simply because it's the simplest solution and I find it easier to explore my own weaknesses than someone else's. I've spent the majority of my adult life with a steadfast belief. Living your life for or majorly with anyone else is dangerous. It's your own, and giving it to anyone else is just a way to fail. It's based on my own past failures and the ones I've witnessed as well. I thought the only way to have a good life was to live it for myself. Needless to say, in trying to avoid pain in love, I've never succeeded either. Your line, April, presents a clarification on this and my mistake. Living your life for or majorly with someone else isn't the mistake. Discarding creativity, simply focusing on some end goal while you do this, is the mistake. Kosei's purpose, and where he seems the most complete and alive, is at the piano. The gusto with which they say lines like,
"And so, I play. Not because it haunts me, but because I want to. Heart and soul, I'm a pianist."
and the general idea of music as something from the soul. The way he and others play their feelings into the music to the adoration of entire concert halls. It's not a stretch to say the piano is like his life itself. As his teacher says,
"'Cause once you're done, you can't imagine life without it."
See how good I am? Well, my partner is even better. Creating something new out of nothing is tough. But that's the part of it that feeds your soul. So I'm gonna play for you.
and he plays it for two people in the anime, both times under the banner of love. Once for his mother, the time it fails and emotionally decimates him, and secondly for Kaori, the time it makes him a complete and more healthy person. And this is despite the fact both situations have the same outcome, the most abrupt kind of ending. Why is living for someone else so awful once, but so grand the next time? Creativity and success are exactly why. His mother stamped out creativity and focused on success. The love between them became a thing of goals rather than for love itself. The notes on the page are the perfect summary. The successes of long dead men, it's all about the past and copying it, not about creating anything new. This became the core of their relationship. If Kosei wasn't a child, one who had to be around his mother and felt some obligation to her, would he have stayed there? It was more of a duty than anything else. But love must create, not just cling to the past. And this is exactly what happens with Kaori from their very first moments. What draws Kosei to her is creation, the music she makes, the way she plays it in such a passionate form, giving performances that sound similar to ones given before, but never exactly the same as something in the past. This is why it's hard to get a read on her. You can't look at other things and discover what she is, you have to just look at her. When he seeks her out, it's not to sustain some image of the past, it's to create a new one. She even gets him to do this with the thing that causes him the most pain, the piano. The object his mother tied to success, and then abruptly to failure. It's the fault of that misguided and stale love that he can't play anymore. For Kosei, the piano has become a thing of worldly success. Now, despite all of this, Kaori does convince him to try it once more, but the way he's playing sloppily here would lead Kaori to fail, so he stops mid-performance. But right here, Kaori does something genius. When she stops herself, fully tanking her own performance, it detaches what's occurring from his old motivation. They can no longer succeed, but she goes on anyway, proving the act of creation as something of its own value. And he follows suit as they give a performance which inspires the crowd, and then both of them to keep playing. This moment becomes one of those that drives them both forward for the rest of the series. And that's why, specifically in love, creativity is so important. Rather than clinging to the past and trying to recreate what's worked before, it should be about looking to the future, inspiring each other to create more and more moments along the way. And there should be no goal but love itself. Every path will end in the same place, so why care where it leads, and what do you do along the way to make that your own? This may sound like life, but it's also love. When we defined love as a concept, we stuck it to our own minds as something to be achieved. Like notes on a sheet, you could look at what has worked for others or yourself in the past and copy it. But we've seen how that works out, and it does nothing to make that path your own. As Kaori says,
How do you want to play this piece? No one can tell you how. It's your decision to make.
creativity is what takes a path leading to the same place and makes it into something that's actually yours. The same as deviating from the notes on the page make a song your own. No one's love will be fully unique, but if you stay inspired and creative, it will be different, and that's all we can hope for. And this is what they keep doing. Kaori inspired Kosei, so when she loses faith, he pays that back to her and re-inspires her. And unbeknownst to him, this wasn't the first time. She was living her life for him all this go. Her goal, knowing her time was limited, was simply to achieve her childhood dream and perform a duet with the pianist after seeing his magical performance as a child. She was living her life for him, but instead of leading to pain like our last example, it led to something amazing. And this is because she was creative, and that was the only point. It was a journey, not heading to a destination. Life is just a series of moments, and creativity is looking to the future to make more, whatever the past is. She brought this idea into Kosei's life, and it made him better. And it gets paid back to her as he began to live his life more and more for her. But because they kept their eyes locked in the future, it didn't stagnate and leave them broken, living for someone else. It pushes them forward, so when one fell, the other was there not to pick them back up, but to give them a reason to pick themselves back up, to be inspired to create more of these moments that define us together. It's important that they're not picking each other up either, as Kosei tried to do with his mother, and she, in despicable methods, tried to do with him. It's a large part of why things ended so awfully there. If you're just helping each other up every time, what happens when one of you is gone? Will the other just lie there on the ground forever? In Kosei's case, the answer was yes, until Kaori. And how much the relationship departs from this couldn't be clearer, as he plays a duet they were meant to play together by himself. A duet is the literal bolstering of two musicians as they share the stage and elevate each other. But Kosei does it alone, drawing a clear line. They aren't reliant on each other, even if they live for each other. As they so often wonder after a performance,
Did it reach her? I hope that it did.
that was simply the goal. Did it reach her? Did it reach everyone else to show how much she inspired him? Did the song ring out love, true and clear, off script and creative? They never do get to play a last duet as Kaori dies, leaving Kosei without active inspiration. But when the relationship itself was built off of inspiration, to simply stay on the ground where you fall would be an insult to everything it was. With his mother, staying on the ground and not moving forward meant staying as close to her as possible, a focus on the past. But Kaori, with something that was so against the past, it would be a disgrace to not move forward. This was all and always about the future, as creativity is by definition. Making something new, even just somewhat new, can only happen in the future. Everything in the present is already made. The best thing he can do to honor Kaori is to keep pushing himself forward as they did for each other, to maintain the creativity they shared, both in music and in moments. To use the past not as a goal, but as an inspiration. In this way, Kaori will always be a part of his music, and they do get to play one last duet. The last performance we see from Kosei is a solo, but in his own mind she appears to make it a duet. She's not there, but her influence is in him, her inspiration that got him there, the creativity that they shared. She drives him forward as love should. He finishes this duet alone, knowing that she won't ever be there to make these moments again. But it's important he ends it alone because it shows that he won't be held back by the past this time. Even if he is inspired by those moments, it's just to seek out more and to make more. He'll honor her memory and their love, as he should. Even if it's gone, it made him better. A better musician, sure, but also a better person, a person more aware of what love is and what it should be.
Do you resent me?
Huh?
Hey. Hey.
Hey.
Your lie in April to me stressed the idea of creativity being important to love, and to me that fits because love is an act of creation, something else the anime highlights. For a story that would be described as being about mad musicians, there are oddly few performances. They occur in only about 30% of the episodes, and even then, they usually don't take up the entire time, at least definitely not for Kosei and Kaori, making the actual percentage much lower. I think this is a great detail because while love is certainly crafted in grand demonstrations like the ones they share, just as important are the slow beats of the story, the plotlines which convey us from one performance to the next, the moments which, true to what the anime mimics in life, account for most of our existence. These are the moments that, at least in my experience, always created the biggest obstacle to love. Moments where exhaustion takes over and creation is strangled by everything else life forces on us. Moments full of awkward silences you wish you could fill with everything that's unsaid. Love, like any act of creation, is a fickle thing that has to be propped up again and again. It can be lost in an instant. Creativity is important to make the moments that prevent that. These performances, the large moments of their relationship, hold no value outside of rankings and positions, at least as far as a traditional sense is concerned. For others in the series, those are the aspects that matter. But for Kaori, and later for Kosei as well, it's anything but that. They're creative in these moments, making them into something more memorable, impactful, and relationship building. If she never stops playing in their duet, then that moment is nothing to build off of. It would have just been the duty of friend A to help her win. If they don't play creatively, the crowd would have cared no more for them than anyone else, and everything would continue on, just waiting for the next silence to be filled, just like those moments in between. But these performances change that. These moments we create change that. And we do create them. There is nothing inherent to these moments that make them something special. The anime is full of moments in that percent that are just as beautiful, full of stunning scenery and impactful dialogue. Moments where the moon is shining bright and beautiful, the train siren and it blaring by, windows that are open just enough to let in the cherry blossoms. All of these things that traditionally adorn memorable moments and create the platform for a life-changing one. But not all of them can be life-changing. These all have the potential, but it's impossible to make them all great, and it's even more impossible to remember them all even if we could. Just like so many of these scenes are forgotten under the glory of others in the anime, we'll never remember every moment we spend with someone. But we have the option to make a select few that we do, the ones that drive us not to sit and reminisce forever, but inspire us to keep moving forward for more. To keep creating something that's worth giving half of your being to, a true love. I think the summary of this adds more detail to the phrase living for someone else to remove its danger. Something more like living for the moments you'll create with someone else. A statement that includes creation and refuses to state an end goal. To me at least, this is one of the things Your Lie in April is saying. Naturally though, even for being a narrative that covers dark moments and the loss of loved ones, it still exists in an idealized space. Everything comes back to Kosei and his performances as he inadvertently inspires seemingly everyone, and everything is wrapped up in one nice singular package. For real life, this is hardly ever the case. And trying to have some love like Kosei and Kaori would never have the same end result, as they exist in a unique situation where their lives can be so dedicated to each other and music. Our world doesn't usually allow for that, and pushes many more dull moments, the ones which danger love rather than inspire it. Our version of this task is a lot more complex and open. While this may be obvious to some, I remember sitting here when a thought struck me. Love isn't a guarantee. If it's truly something great, then it has to be earned like something else great. Anything else would just be an insult to it. When we want love, we can't wait for it, we have to go out and find it and respect it. Much like Kosei, sitting around in fear won't get you anywhere. If he had never, albeit with heavy coaxing, conquered that fear, he would have never grown and changed, never reconnected with his purpose, and never loved like he did. It caused him a lot of pain as well. His love was abruptly cut short once again. But we don't see all of this pain the second time around. Because to him, it was worth it, making those moments that will inspire him forward again. Maybe that's what we all need to try as well. At least I know that I probably need to. But I won't bog down the hopeful message of your line April and this video alike with a long rambling outro, but I will mention the pinned comment, which will include a few important links like my Twitter, Discord, and Twitch, where I'll be streaming on Thursday nights and Saturday afternoons, just afternoon technically, as well as my Patreon, the most important link where you can get your name at the end of videos like these lovely people above me right now, in addition to some extra benefits when we get a few more people, and there's even a script for this that I didn't want to use uploaded there now if you want a little bit more kind of rambling late night prof. But anyway, I'll just leave you by saying thank you for watching, and I do hope that I'll see you again soon.